It's the Go Gopher Podcast with Mike Grimm, episode number 150. I am Mike Grimm, voice of the Golden Gophers, and welcome back to the podcast. The Gopher women's basketball team is off to a 10-0 start, and it's our thrill to have head coach Dawn Plitzuweit with us again. She'll make a return trip to the Go Gopher Podcast this week. In fact, she'll be making her third ever appearance on our show, and a reminder, her first appearance was one of our most listened to episodes ever. She's high energy, high intensity, and you'll enjoy hearing from her again as her club is set to open Big Ten play at Nebraska this weekend. Our Go Gopher Podcast is presented by Sunbelt Business Advisors, alumni-owned Sunbelt and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're a business founder planning to exit your business, start by contacting Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. Sunbelt serves more businesses up to $5 million in revenue than anyone, and True North M&A serves companies with revenues up to $150 million. Get a confidential, no-cost, no obligation business valuation started today. Make the most of your life's work. Visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com today. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union is also a big sponsor of our Go Gopher Podcast. Life math is complicated, and Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union makes it easier with local financial experts available to help in person or virtually. Go to affinityplus.org/Go Gophers for more info. Longtime Gopher sports supporter, Cub is a proud sponsor of the Go Gopher Podcast with Mike Grimm. In a hurry, don't worry. Cub delivers. Get fresh meat, produce, everyday essentials, and more delivered to your door. Cub is the official grocer of the Golden Gophers and proud to support Gopher athletics for over 20 years. The Go Gopher Podcast is also presented by OnX Fish. Listen to this week's Go Gopher Podcast to find out how you can get a free download of OnX Fish from OnX Maps. We're podcasting episode 150 from the Aquarius Home Services studio. We invite you to subscribe to the Go Gopher Podcast. It's free to do so. You can go back and listen to previous Go Gopher Podcast as well. Last week, for example, we spoke with Gopher kicker Dragan Kesic. He previewed the big game at Wisconsin and then went out and kicked a field goal to help Minnesota get back Paul Bunyan's axe. Go back and have a listen to that. He is always a great listen. This week, we're talking Golden Gopher women's basketball with the head coach, Dawn Plitzuweit. She'll join me next.
I'm Clay Geary, walk-on turned scholarship wide receiver for Gopher football.
And I'm Ben Utek, U of M alumni, Super Bowl champion, and Tony Dungy Uncommon Award winner.
We understand championship culture, which is why we're part of the True North family of companies.
True North invests in only elite teams, like the champion team at Sunbelt Business Advisors, Minnesota's largest seller of companies. To learn more about True North and our diverse family of independently owned companies, visit TrueNorthEquityPartners.com.
How much can you save when you shop Cub? Let's just say you might need a bigger cart. We've lowered prices so you save more. On Essential every day, it's easy to see the savings. Across the aisles, from pantry products to frozen foods to delicious dairy and more. Your family will love it, guaranteed, or your money back. Shop Cub and save today. My Cub, my way. See store for details.
It is episode 150. It's a milestone benchmark, no doubt, and it's our pleasure to welcome back to the podcast her third visit with us here on the Go Gopher Podcast in her time here, Dawn Plitzuweit, the head coach of Gopher women's basketball. You knew this was 150 before you got in. You must follow stuff.
We follow. Exactly right. That's right. We follow the Grimm.
How about
the Grimm
that?
Podcast, man. Go Gophers.
It's a must listen, no doubt.
That's exactly right.
Especially this week. Your first appearance was one of our most listened to episodes ever, by the way.
Well, I don't know, up north.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the episode 149?
Yeah.
That one was pretty popular too, I think.
No doubt. All right, well, let's talk about your basketball team. You guys are off to a hot start here, 10-0. You've played 10 games. We were just talking about it before we popped on the air here that as of now, as we record this on Thursday morning, you're the first team to 10 wins. You've set the schedule that you were pretty busy here the first 30 days of the year.
We were really busy the first 30 days of the year. And just the way things align and the way the rules are now, we could actually fit one more game into our condensed schedule. It makes it challenging, obviously, with the Big Ten playing at least one game before Christmas each year. It makes it more challenging because we have a split finals week and we have 2 study days. And during that time, you're not able to schedule games. And then we come back and we start pretty much right after Christmas. And so at that point in time, you're trying your best to get these games in.
Yeah.
And our staff has done a good job of putting the schedule together, and our players have done a great job of responding to this and playing at a high level.
Well, I am a little jealous. Guardsy got to go to Phoenix and New Orleans. The men went to Orlando. I had to miss because football conflicted with it. And I get to go to like West Lafayette in a couple of weeks. Like you had a couple nice trips there too.
We did have some nice trips. Well, it was important for us to get away from home and play away from the comforts of the barn, so that when we open up Big Ten play on the road this weekend, we've seen what that adversity looks like, what that uncomfortability looks like, and we've hopefully are as prepared as we can be for that type of a look. And so we did have a chance. We got to go to Phoenix and spend 2.5 quick days there. And New Orleans was a little bit longer, and had a little bit of downtime there, and had a little time over Thanksgiving to do a little tour and have some fun with that too. And that's important.
Bob Motzko, the hockey coach, talks about this a lot. He kind of says the season doesn't start till his team hits the road, and it's important. And hockey guys are weird anyway, right? But he believes there's a bonding aspect to getting on the road. He loves that first road trip. Do you find that to be true too with basketball?
Well, we have the opportunity to do an awful lot of bonding during the summer, and we do that. We take advantage of that. But I also believe there's a lot of truth to be said in Coach Motzko's wisdom there. Yeah. He's been doing this for a few years as well. But I also think, it's an opportunity to spend some time together. We are intentional. We do a little team building, a little team activity, just kind of some fun things on our road trips as well. May not be long, but something to keep us rejuvenated is really, really important. And each year we kind of tweak exactly how we go about doing that to what our team that year looks like. And so, for example, this year we get all of our film work done, and then practice in the morning, and then depart. And then usually when we get on the road and we get to the hotels about dinner time, and then we do some kind of fun little activity after dinner, and then they do their recovery and their stretching and foam rolling and travel saunas and all that kind of fun stuff. Where last year we wouldn't do our film in the morning. We would wait till the night before when we got there. And this year we've changed that a little bit, because I think our team has been really locked in and it's worked for us. So that's why we were also intentional when we go into our non-conference, before we get into our non-conference, of making sure that we're scheduling an opportunity on the road in a scrimmage against a very competitive team, so that we get to practice what that looks like. Yeah. And even with this year, our first game of the year on the road in the Big Ten is, I think, a 1:00 tip, which means our shoot-around time is 7:00 in the morning. And we've done things a little bit differently this year too, where it's important that you have good rest, that you know what you're doing, that you're really locked in. And so we've kind of changed that morning routine and get to the arena a little bit earlier and get shots up. And that's been really good for us. We've had a chance to practice it now 2 different times on the road with different tournaments that we've been in. And so we've seen some of that routine, and we feel a little bit more comfortable with that, I believe.
Yeah, and before my hockey friends get mad that I called them all weird, it's an endearing term. That's a compliment that we're all weird, right?
That's exactly right.
We all have our own unique aspect. Well, your team is 10-0, as we mentioned. Generally, how do you like where you are right now as a coach with your club?
Generally, I like where we're at. I think our competitiveness is at a very high level. Our defensive intensity awareness is better. It's much improved from where we were a year ago. We're taking care of the ball at a high level. And even when in our last game number 10 for us against North Florida, we turned the ball over, I think, 14 times in that game. And we've been a team that's averaged a little over 9 to 10 turnovers a game. And we've been one of the best teams in the country at taking care of the basketball. 3 of our turnovers are 3-second calls, but our post players who got those were trying to do something that we were really emphasizing, which was when the ball gets in the middle of the zone, you really have to pin and work to get it. And they got 3-second calls on that.
I didn't even know that call still existed.
Exactly. Right. That's exactly right. So I think it's something that, even though there's a risk reward. We're trying to grow a part of our game and develop, but now we understand, okay, we have to do it a little bit differently. And so I think overall we are continuing to grow and we're continuing to learn. And that's really, really important for this time of the year as it is for the entire season.
So when you and your staff get together, what are maybe 2 or 3 things you talk about? If we want to take the step and really be good, here's what we got to do.
Well, scoring the ball efficiently is really important. And this year we haven't scored it quite as well as we want to. Our goal in each game is to score at about a 47% clip. again, the math behind this makes this a little bit nerdy, but the math behind it makes it a little bit more challenging. If you're taking care of the ball and getting more shots, then you maybe don't score quite as efficiently because you get more shots. And you're getting offensive rebounds, so you're getting more opportunities. So what I'm trying to figure out is what that formula really should look like, because it really truly should be points per possession. But in points per possession, if you get an offensive rebound, it really should truly stay that same possession, because otherwise you get disadvantaged from a field goal percentage standpoint. Ultimately, we're not where we want to be in terms of scoring efficiently, but we're taking care of the basketball. We're getting good shots. We're understanding what we want to look for. We just need to put the ball in the basket a little bit more efficiently, effectively.
Defensively, you like what's happening?
I do. I think we've adjusted a few things from how we've defended a few different things in the past. I think we have better awareness. I think we have we're more disruptive. We have better ball pressure, and we're better off the ball, making things happen. But again, that's a risk reward too, because, and we tell our players all the time, you're going to be able to make decisions within the course of the game, and all of a sudden someone shoots behind a ball screen and makes one. Well, then the next time adjust and guard it a little bit differently with how you're guarding the ball handler. But then what does that look like for the post kid? And so we're learning how to play together and make adjustments as the game goes on too. And I think that's really, really important. But defensively, we're stronger than we were last year. We're a better defensive team at this point in time.
It looks like the roster is more balanced and there's more depth, right? Would you say that?
I would say that losing Mara Braun has really cut into that
hurts,
at a high level, for sure. But I think overall our depth is better. Our ability to get to the rim is better than it was last year. Our ability to defend at a higher level and rebound is better than it was. But again, now we have to continue to understand what that looks like. Now you move into Big Ten play, and now your opponents know you at a really high level. Now we're actually scouting someone that we have familiarity with. We know what their names are. We know what they did last year. We have a sense of what they're about to do, but they have the same thing for us. Mm-hmm. And so now all of a sudden you're scouted at a different level, and now your players have to be able to make those adjustments too. Now they know they have to get out on this screen a little bit harder. Now they know they can sit back a little bit more on this. And so how do you as a player make the decisions that make the most sense for our team too, and for us to be as efficient as possible? And so it becomes a little bit different because there's a little more chess to it at this point in time.
And when you look at it without Mara, your leading available scorer comes off the bench right now with Stewart. She's averaging the most points. So that speaks to a little bit of strength in numbers too, right?
Well, it absolutely does. And for us to be a program that is an equal opportunity program is great, but you also need to be a program then that has multiple players that can step up and make those kind of plays. And we're at a spot right now where we've had multiple players step up. In our last game, I think we had 6 players in double figures, and that's going to be really important for us. You can look at it one of two ways. It's great when you know who your key kid is and who you're going to. It's also good when you have 5 players on the floor that can space it and make a read and make a decision, and all 5 players can put it in the basket. So both of those are really advantageous.
And then from the standpoint of you talked about Mara, and I don't know what the latest update is on her. One, can you give us an update on kind of how things are going with her just physically and maybe even emotionally? Because it's got to be just a killer for her, I would think. Well,
Mara is someone who is mature beyond her years, but that does not make this easy in any way, shape, or form. And so she's had surgery, very successful surgery. We will get her back with us when she can be weight bearing, which will be pretty soon. But we really miss her. And we miss her not only on the court, but we miss her being around us because she's just a high energy, positive individual, understands the game at a high level, can help her teammates. So we really miss her a great, great deal. I think a lot of people want to know what's in the future for her in terms of is she coming back this year, and we don't know those kind of things at this point in time. It's just a point where she has to continue to heal to the best of her ability and go from there. So it's been hard. It's been really challenging for her. This is hard. Injuries are always hard, but if you understand when you get to be our age, Grimm, well, you're younger than I am, but you can understand what that adversity is going to set you up. But when you're in college, can you imagine having to face that? And again, I think she's done it at a higher level than anyone possibly could even imagine she's doing it at. But again, I think it's really challenging too.
Yeah, and to put through all the work, and then to have the second, reoccurrence of this thing has got to be tricky. So as a team, then, how do you? All right, hey, here's what we're dealt. This is a bad hand, but we can play it. We can still, win the card game here in that vernacular. So what's the message to the team, and how have they responded to everyone, I suppose, doing what they can to help?
Well, first and foremost, I think what's really important is that Mara's doing everything she can to help her teammates be successful. I think her teammates are doing a really good job of reaching out to her. And we were in Louisiana, and Mara was having surgery. And, in terms of having our Thanksgiving dinner and FaceTiming Mara and having her be a part of it, and then bringing back beignets for Mara. She got a whole box of beignets, I think. I don't know how that happened, but, and picking her up and trying to reach out to her and visit her and do those kind of things. I think that's important too. On the court, absolutely different players are going to have to fill that void. But what we talk about is it's not one player that's going to step in and be Mara Braun, just because one player is now inserted into the starting lineup as Tori McKinney. Tori McKinney and Mara Braun are very different players. Tori can do some things that are special, and Mara does some things that are special, but their special may not be the exact same skill set. And so it's important that each player ups their game to another level. And I think we're seeing that right now. Not necessarily always in across the board in a stat sheet, but you take a Maya Battle, for example, and this year, she is at a point right now where last year at this time, I think her assist turnover ratio was about 1.3. Now it's up to like 2 or maybe it's 1.6, something like that. Now it's up to 2.5.
Yeah.
And so she's really taking care of the ball at a high level and still getting some great assists. And last year at this time, I think she was 3 for 10 from the arc, and this year she's 14 of 28 from the arc.
Yeah.
And so she's grown her game. Last year she had 12 steals at this time of the year. Now she has 18. And not everything is an incremental increase all the time, but you're seeing different players continue to grow their games so that we can continue to progress as a program.
And then how, and maybe this is more psychology than not, but how do you approach it in that you let the game, like Amaya and others are letting the game come to them, they're learning and they're progressing, where it's not, Mara's out, I got to go score 30, or whoever it is. I'm not specifically talking about her, to still let the thing happen, but you need everyone to step up.
Well, and I think that's what we're really trying to do with our coaching staff right now, is break down what does basic, simple, fundamental basketball look like. And so when we come down the court and we have an opportunity, we get more stops, which means we should be able to push the ball in transition more, which means now we need to know what makes sense in transition. What's a high percentage shot for us? What's a good look for us? How are different teams going to play you in transition? And how do we simulate that and prepare for that? But what does simple basketball look like? And like, for example, this year, I believe that Mallory Heyer has become a much improved defender, but also a much improved passer into the post. And seeing that young lady, and we're showing a clip today in practice of how we didn't pass into the post last year, but then when we, after a ball screen, but then when we did, it got knocked away from us. Where this year, now we understand to look for that kid, but we also understand what we have to do to position ourselves to come up with it. And so I think, again, continuing to grow. Everyone talks, you watch Mallory Heyer and you love how hard she plays and the energy that she plays with, and the offensive rebounds, the defensive rebounds, all those type of things, the back cuts. And it's so much fun. And now you watch an area of her game grow where she's handling the ball more in transition or dumping it into the post and seeing that kid. And the post kid is doing a better job of keeping her pin, and then, or coming up with, forget about position, go get possession of the basketball. Make sure that we retain possession and understanding those type of things. So it's fun to watch us continue to grow right now. But you're right. I think the only way you can approach where we're at right now is you just have to play and do simple things well.
Yeah. And how about you? I mean, obviously you're set as your philosophy on coaching. You were clear on that the first time we had you on the podcast, but just the level now that you've been here for a minute, like, and I'm talking simple stuff. I've interviewed a lot of coaches, and after a year or two, they're like, even stuff like, well, I know what restaurants to go to. I know how to drive to work. Right. I'm not like trying to punch in everything on a GPS. A routine is down. How is that at all changed for you now that you're kind of, I hope, settled into the situation? Well,
I think it makes a big difference when you're in year two. As much as our players are more comfortable, I think we as coaches are also more comfortable knowing what our players do and how they react and how we can help put them in the best possible situation for them. And you're right. at this time of day when you leave Williams, you better take 280 or you better take a different way. You better take 94. You better not try to get back to 35. Or now they added a stop sign on 15th, and boy, you better not go back that way because you're going to get stuck for quite a while. So what does that look like?
Yeah,
and
there's
how
enough
do you be
traffic
efficient?
cones out on campus alone. Just to get off campus, it might
That's
take
exactly
half an hour.
right. That becomes a little challenging sometimes.
Crazy for sure. As you look at how your feedback is on recruiting, and I know you can't talk about specific players. There's some commits, but I think they have to sign, right? That's still the rule. With all the changing rules every day, it's hard to tell for sure. But what's the feedback been like now after a year? Now when you hit the recruiting channel, it looks like you've had some success, and when you go out and talk with players and coaches and parents and families.
Well, I think that initially the thought in why Minnesota is because there is a great recruiting base right in our backyard, and that's the state, the region. And certainly we as a staff have been very intentional about trying to be diligent and do the best that we can in recruiting in our backyard to the best of our ability, and then supplementing, because there are some really talented young ladies across the country that can step in and that can help us too. And so what I think is really changing and evolving right now, and we don't even know where this is all going to go, is what becomes the impact of the new NIL clearinghouse and how does that really take effect? And then what becomes the impact of revenue share and how does that change things potentially? And right now it's hard to know what that's going to look like. We can only speculate because nobody really knows. We've never been in this before. And so I think ultimately we as coaches and our coaching staff philosophy is our goal is to build a team and a culture that young ladies want to be a part of, whether that's out of high school, whether that's supplementing here and there from the transfer portal. But that's really important to us.
I wasn't going to go down this, but we talked. You just brought it up, so I'll ask quickly on the revenue share and that part of it. The numbers were not exactly sure, right? I mean, who knows where it's going to go, but how much do you, I mean, women's basketball has been brought up as a part, you're going to get a piece of this.
Right.
So how much are you knocking on Mark Coyle's door saying, this is what we need more, we need less? I mean, it's going to be, right? There's going to be some
well, there's some conversations
here, right?
that go back and forth. Yeah. Absolutely. We had a pretty long one, in-depth one yesterday, as a matter of fact. And so it's important. I really believe that the University of Minnesota and our administration are going to make women's basketball a very high priority. And so that's really exciting for us.
Yeah. And it's such a changing landscape. We could do this next week and there might be changes.
That's exactly
in everything.
Right.
No doubt about it. Let me talk a minute about one of our sponsors. Affinity Plus is your local credit union, proudly serving Minnesota since 1930. If you're a current Gopher student or a proud Gopher alum, that makes you eligible to join a financial that wants to build a meaningful banking relationship and put you first. Meet with a local employee at any of their branches statewide, including one right off campus here in Minneapolis on University. Great spot. To learn more and find other ways to connect, visit affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. That's affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. Of course, one of the great Gophers, Mara Braun, who we've talked about here, is an ambassador for them as part of the NIL. So we thank Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union for helping with Gopher athletics, their support of not just the Gopher Radio Network, our podcast here, but also student athletes. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA, people-centered banking, perfect for Gophers. We also want to thank our sponsor, OnX Maps. Ice fishing is here, and it's time to hit the frozen water with OnX Fish. The Fish app is the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your confidence on ice. Use OnX Fish to find new places to fish and sort lakes by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potentials. OnX Fish also shows you hot spots, lake-by-lake regulations, and private and public land ownership info. For a limited time, download OnX Fish for free in Minnesota and Wisconsin, or go to onxmaps.com/fish to get more information on the app that is changing the game on ice. Let's talk about the Big Ten in general. You open Big Ten play Sunday at Nebraska. The Big Ten has become such a strong league, and now 18 teams.
Wow.
You've added like two of the top teams in the country with USC and UCLA. Caitlin Clark is gone, so that piece of the star power is gone. But man, this league, I mean, this is a gauntlet here.
Well, when you look at the standings right now in the Big Ten, and it is it is 8-0, 9-0, 10-0, 7-1, 6-1 on, whatever. There are so many teams that are so loaded, that are competitive and tough, and teams that I think last year was the most veteran the Big Ten has ever been. This year, when you lose those experienced players and they graduate, then there are opportunities for transfers to come in. And so it didn't necessarily get younger. It grew in a different way. And so what we've established, and we went back and looked at what is it that we as a program, in order for us to get to the NCAA tournament, which is a goal, in order for us to get to that, what are the teams, the 7 teams that were in the Big Ten last year that went to the NCAA tournament, what were their analytics compared to our analytics? Well, now you add 4 more teams. And so I do believe the depth of this conference is just unbelievable right now. And there's some star power at the same time. And so for us, we're continuing to try to evaluate exactly what that looks like and how do we compete. And ultimately, 2 of the areas we believe that we have to continue to grow in. One is we've got to be really solid defensively, which then allows us to get out and transition and score a little bit faster, a little bit better, a little bit more efficiently, and looking at how to do that, how to continue to grow that aspect of it.
And when we talk about the Big Ten, we mentioned there's still some star power. Juju Watkins, right, is maybe the head of that. And how do you look at it now? You mentioned with Nebraska coming up, you've got now a more familiar scouting report, right? But I wonder, logistically, you're going to play everybody once. That's it, right? So it's not like, hey, you're going to play Michigan State Tuesday, January 8th, and then maybe 2.5 weeks later you get them again. And I'm not saying none of it's easy, but it might be easier to say, hey, let's look back. Here's what our scouting report is. We're familiar with them. This is like the NFL now. You're playing, it's a one-off, basically. You play Wisconsin twice, and that's it. So logistically, how does that change scouting, planning, all of that, or does it at all? Is it just simply a game for a game? I
don't know that it really changes it ultimately. I think each opponent, each game is something that you're really diving into. When you work in an opponent scout, and so right now we've played 10 games, and I don't know what the days were, 28, 29, 30 days, whatever that was. Really, you're working on scouting for your opponents and prepping for your game. Prep is what you're really in. Now, before we play Nebraska, we had a day off after the North Florida game, and now we have 3 days. So we can actually spend a day working on us, which we haven't had that opportunity in quite a while.
Those are like precious days, right?
They are precious days. So this practice is really important in how we prep for it. And we can't do too many things, because if you try to be the jack of all trades, you're not mastering any one of them. And so you got to figure out what are those 2 or 3 really key things that can help you then turn to game prep. Nebraska is a team that is, I think, in the top 5 in the country in field goal percentage. They're scoring over 50% a game, which is phenomenal. They're in the top 5 in the country, too, in terms of 3-point field goal percentage, at 41%. They're scoring 86, 87 points a game. And they're good defensively. They guard you for the most part in a man, and they're really long and they're athletic and they make things happen. And so you're right. Right now we focus on one opponent at a time, because that's all we can do, and then you try to get into a rhythm at doing those type of things. The advantage is we've at least seen a lot of their players. Alexis Markowski is a star, and I think Britt Prince is a star in the making. And boy, they have some other really good young, not even young, some older players, some young players that are making a lot of things happen. One of them, in Callan Hake, who's got some experience at that point in time. And, I think that Logan Nisley is shooting the ball at an incredibly high level. And so, Allison Widener's made her return. She's a young lady who's been through some injuries. So a team that has experience and has some star power and has the ability to really put the ball in the basket at a very high level, which is going to provide us some great challenges.
Yeah, and they had a young player get injured too, right? One of their better players.
They did. Natalie Potts. Yeah, she was up for. I actually think she was up for Freshman of the Year. Maybe she won it in one of the 2 polls, and she and Grace Grahowski were kind of battling. And there was a revote at one point in time.
Oh, and gosh.
Yeah, I've never seen that before, so it's kind of interesting.
So they're missing her. I watched a little. I was channel hopping the other day. They were playing, I think, Lindenwood, and that was a meat grinder for a while, and then they just
took
overwhelmed them
right.
like middle
Absolutely.
of the third quarter. So that sometimes kind of happens. We talked about the road trip, and then so you get this one game in the Big Ten, and then you're back to a couple of non-conference games, and you get close to, I guess, right after Christmas, back to is it Penn State, I believe.
Right.
So we're here.
We're in the thick of it at this point in time. We're in the fun, and it's been a fun experience with this group of young ladies, because while they're hungry and they want to do really well, they do it with a very humble approach, and they're fun to be around. And so I'd encourage our fans, if you can get to Lincoln and get a ticket, come cheer for us. That'd be great. We'd appreciate that, and get some more maroon than red in there. That'd be nice. I'm not sure that's entirely possible, but we'll take as much maroon as we can get in there, but also to come out and support when we get back after that trip, because again, we're continuing to build and continuing to get ready, and it doesn't slow down at this point in time. Yeah,
and it's a fun team to watch, and I think we're getting out of football season, and everybody's busy, but there needs to be some people making a point to come out and watch you guys.
We would love that. Our young ladies really feed off of the energy. I think the barn has had some. What's really unique about the barn is that besides just the race floor, is that when you are a part of it, it gets so loud in there. And so the fans make a big difference and can provide us an incredible home court advantage.
Yeah, no doubt. Gophersports.com. Go get those tickets when the Gophers return. But it's on the road this weekend. I know it's a busy time. We appreciate you coming on. I know fans appreciate hearing about the team. And good luck the rest of the way.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. It is episode 150. Head coach Dawn Plitzuweit. My thanks again to Gopher women's coach Dawn Plitzuweit for spending time with us during a very busy time of year. Get out and support that team as they embark on Big Ten play and look to be a factor. She is awesome. You can get tickets at gophersports.com. Episode number 150 of the Go Gopher Podcast is presented by Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're buying or selling a business, visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com. We're also partnered with Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, a locally member-owned full-service financial invested in you. You can learn more at affinityplus.org/GoGophers. Affinity Plus, banking for Minnesotans, with you from Pee-wees to the pros. And Cub is a proud supporter of Gopher Athletics for over 20 years and a proud sponsor of the Go Gopher Podcast. Cub, bigger savings on the items you love. OnX Fish also sponsors our show. Again, I'd invite you to listen to past podcasts, and please be sure to subscribe to the Go Gopher Podcast right now. It's free to listen and free to subscribe at any time. And please share the link to the podcast with others so they can subscribe and listen as well. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please let us know with some positive feedback on your social media channels. We'll talk again next week.
When we say that Cub milk is the freshest in town, we mean it. Less than 48 hours from farm to store fresh. We guarantee 7 days or more of freshness. It all starts with local dairy farmers who take great care in making sure all the cows are happy and healthy. We support local farm families 365 days a year. And that makes our milk even more delicious. So you always get the freshest milk and the biggest smiles.